Before we continue with the second part, let me quickly ground us on 5 key insights from part 1 of my conversation with Professor Nieves Confessor. First, I learned that negotiation is not a killing strategy, it is a learning strategy. Second, many negotiations fail because of assumptions. We think we already know what the other party wants, and that belief often comes from arrogance and not clarity. Third, the world has changed. Control and command no longer works in a complex, volatile, and uncertain environment. What works now is relationship building. Fourth, good negotiation requires knowing 2 things clearly: what the other party truly wants and what we are willing to walk away with. And fifth, empathy is not softness. Empathy is the discipline of asking better questions and surrendering the belief that we already know. With these insights in mind, we now move into part 2 of this conversation, entitled The Untold Stories of the Tiger Negotiator. And to the people of my generation, and to generations after us who are learning from the clues of the past, there is a story here where she will share. We all watched this, we scrutinized, we dissected it, and we will hear the lessons of the past for the first time from Professor Nieves Confessor.
How can I give you what you want? Di ba simple yun? But you see, they will not come in yet. Why? Because trust is an issue. And that's where your strategy of trust building has to come in. And maybe, a good example, story, and I think I shared it with you, was President Ramos. Ay nako, he was my mentor. Opla was my mentor talaga. What did he say? He was a military general. That's why I didn't even vote for him. Kasi I didn't want a military man to be my president. So I also told him that when he said, you should be secretary. So I said, okay, let's work together. So the first time the unions were in the streets, first few days niya, he's not a very popular president. And as soon as they went to the streets, because that was the gas hikes, very high. So I said, oh no, sir, I'll go down. I'll meet with them. Then he says, no, why don't you invite them, Nieves, for breakfast? Here, with me. Kaya nyo? He said, kaya nyo yan, ha? And says, yes, I have to do. And I will validate. Ano rin siya eh. Ano ba talaga ang pwede nating gawin together? So I thought he was sounding off the right signals. You have to signal your willingness. So sabi niya, ayun that refers to this idea of the closing. You, in a negotiation, and in real life, di ba? Even with your kids, you really want to know kung ano talaga ang kanila. Ibubukas mo yung kanilang puso.
So we're back to puso, di ba?
Oo naman.
So negotiation is not all cerebral.
Ay, hindi naman. At better not.
So dapat pag nag-negotiate ka, mas puso.
The puso has to be there. I think a lot of us miss it because, in a company, people think, oh, we have a change strategy. Discounts, all of these things, yeah? Terribly cerebral. But if you look at what has happened on change strategies, the more successful ones in the very end will talk to the heart. It is the heart that will stop any change. Even if the cerebral says it is so good, but if the heart is not willing, sorry, won't be there. Masamang loob eh.
But this is very interesting because a lot of the senior managers, right, when you talk about emotions, for example, they think we have this word, woo-woo, kumbaya, right? Na parang,
akala nila.
And we don't want emotions. I even remember when we did a session, I got to talk to a senior leader and says, ayoko nang, you have to promise me walang iyakan ang sessions. I cannot promise that. I don't control anyone's heart, right? But where is this coming from? I mean, why is the heart being discounted or diminished or set aside?
Because it belongs to another generation, another century, where the heart, kasi the idea is that the heart is weak. Yeah. But in the end, what's happening is while you have the cerebral, the willingness to change does not come from the mind. It comes from the heart. Sabi nga nila sa mga chakra, whatever, ng mga Indian, one here is the mind, the heart, and here is the will. That's why they will sit this way.
Head, heart, gut.
Yeah. And this is the will to act. So, miski may heart ka, kailangan po lang courage. Yung bang the will to act. Pangatlo yun. But you will not get. Tsaka yung the will to act is considered spiritual. Ayan, sasabihin nyo naman sa akin, ay naku, napaka naman namin para tayong nagpupungsoy dito. Di ba? But today, especially with the new generation, these kids, they're the ones asking, what's our mission? What's the purpose? Purpose.
So mission is gut.
God! Kasi ano na yan, aarya na siya eh. So, in the end, it's not an issue of discount. Yung tanong niyan is, I will work for the discount, but tell me why. Tell me why. Kaya ngayon, if you'll notice, for example, I belong to this, to the board of a group of companies. You know them. It's big. A year ago, or 2 years ago, they said, for example, what's the name of your company, Cherry?
World Stage International.
World Stage International. You will notice today, you look at companies, you're going to move to another company, is you look at their tagline. That tagline tells you what their vision is. So this one, I hope, anyway, it's all public. He says, a force for good is the tagline of TDG. I sit on their board. But that one came on 2 years ago only. It did not come on 5 years ago, 20 years ago. So, kita mo yung tingin na ngayon nila that if they want to keep their people, if they want the company to grow in the future, is that they will need to move into this area that is so spiritual called force for good. And now, what are you doing? You're looking for force for good. NYK Line, their partner. Ang tagline ng NYK Line is what? It's a global shipping company. Ang tagline niya is value, give value to life. Shipping line siya. Ano racket niya sa value to life? Pero doon nakasal. I mean, people have joined them because dahil doon sa tagline na yun. So, and that's why I'm saying, in today's world, let's go back to conflict and the negotiation to resolve it, right? Or even just to manage it, is you really need to go back not only to the heart. The easiest is the mind. So when you call for, let's have an open mind, sabi ko, that's the easiest. I will just hire consultants. The hardest is really your heart. Is how do you now get support for people to move? And then you need to go back to what? How do you act? How do you have the will to act? And that takes courage. And courage is not cerebral. Courage what? Is hugot. Now you have to find where you will hugot so that yung tao mo will act. You still want to live in this world? Yeah. So when you tell me, and that's why I felt bad about, oh my God, my apo, my 17-year-old boy, just gave me my lesson. Again, reminded me how out of time I am. When he said, and I assumed it was his di ba? His pocket money. Okay, the doting lola. I was terribly arrogant, assuming that what he needed was money. I actually devalued him. He was looking for an experience. And I could have said, do what you want. Yeah? Or else asked him what he wanted to do going to Tokyo. That was his idea. Going to Sapporo. Hindi nga Tokyo pa eh. So it was so I get reminded, I'm not really that great, isn't it? Ikaw lang nagsasabi eh. But you know, these basic things you need to practice because ang laki ng mental models. I mean, they're in operation right now. So even I have to make sure I don't lapse into my old mental models. It's very scary eh. Di ba?
That's very interesting. These are all things that limit us, right? And in this new world, diba, I think one of the things that leaders probably can learn more is how do you make the space bigger?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And I go back to empathy. When you say empathy, for example, I mean, it's parang, diba, it's kind. Diba? It's generous. But some parts of empathy are dark. Like when I will probably build relationships with you or relationship with you because I wanted something in return.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, I'm clutching a knife on your throat, hoping that you will surrender to my, you know, to my intentions.
You're like China.
Okay.
You bring all your boats to intimidate my country.
Hindi nga eh, I'm building relationship with you eh.
And at the same time, you're building a relationship. Your left hand is trying to build a relationship. Kasi hindi mo rin alam kung mananalo ka using your boats. So, power is a sword. I mean, this is what you play with conflict. There are three main roads. You use power, which is so 19th century. Okay? Or Cold War. Then you use adjudication, the notion of human rights, the notion of a commission on human rights today. If the police made you bungbog and all, you now need to what? You have another venue to go to. Diba? And that's why very critical now we have all of these platforms. But the third tells us is what? You can actually negotiate interest. You might even get more out of it than banging your mga militia ships against my West Philippine Sea. Tayo, we're trying to get our space so that we will what? We will be able to develop the resources of that shoal. So, all the balls are in the air, Cherry. All the balls. So, here, that's why I said, you know, I'm not a China specialist, but you can imagine, yeah? Stakeholders are there. We're trying to play with the U.S. We're trying to build coalitions. We're trying to strengthen whatever to keep those balls in the air. So that happens also in our lives.
But this is so interesting because I do agree on a lot of points that you're making. But if it were that easy, then there will be no more wars in this world, right? So hence, because it's not easy, we then fall into conflicts. So my question is, are conflicts bad?
No.
Do we like conflicts?
You know, that question is weird. Is because you have a choice to like or not like. Is because the conflicts are here. As soon as, for example, itong climate change, that's another source of great conflict today. People are moving. So that's why doon, ang migration issue is what? Overseas Filipinos migrating somewhere. Ngayon, ang migration is what? Because of climate change. Nagmo-move yan. Conflict yan. Because why? Where will they go? Which land will they own? Yeah? So nagra-rub na yan. And that is why, in a sense, today, we need to be very creative. We need to be very, you know, instead of going like this because, whoa, nakakatakot. I mean, all these conflicts, right? Is to start, it is so counter, I don't know, is to open it because you need to converse. You need to understand what's going on.
Let's bring it to the level of the workplace. When we actually, in a very micro situation, like a business situation, meetings, for example, if somebody says something that you don't agree with, but you are not comfortable really meeting that person head on with, with that. We tend to avoid And Filipinos, medyo avoidant tayo Prof. So my question is, kailan pwede mag-engage in a conflict? Kasi it takes two, right? I mean, if you're not ready to receive my conflict, I'd rather avoid you.
Avoidance is one strategy, but it has its consequences. So you need to learn how to engage. That's why I keep using the word engage. It's actually the opposite of avoid.
So kung mababa ang engagement score ng isang company, nag-a-avoid.
Tapos ka.
Okay.
Tapos ka kasi that engagement you should work on before it happens. Di ba? Kasi you need to deepen the relationship so that alam mo what's going on, anong interest, baka magagalit sila, okay. Pero kung ikaw ay pumasok dyan, alam mo, ang mundo ngayon, hindi siya basketball game. Sa basketball game kasi, ano yon? If I throw in a ball, that's against you. So my job is to stop you from gaining a point. Tawag natin dyan, win-lose. Pag win-win natin ang basketball, tawag dyan ay game fixing. Okay. So which tells us what? There are certain situations where you will be forced to win-lose it. Pero the opportunity to win-win is something else. And that's where your empathy will come in. That's where you're finding out what is important to them. And that's a difference. That's a different ball game.
So engage.
Yeah, engage.
Engage. Kahit pagagalitan ka, engage.
Engage. Kasi people compete all the time.
So, Prof, if I engage but I don't have the skills in communication, I can come off as maybe I'm an aggressor. Let's just say, which is worse, being an aggressor or passive-aggressive, disengage?
Kung passive-aggressive ka, I hope you can afford it.
What do you mean by that?
Why? Because your signals are going to be mixed up by the other party. That's even worse than being poker-faced. Yung poker-face at least, wala kang face. Hina-hide mo. Yung passive-aggressive, signaling mo, anong gusto niya talaga? That's what
Yung
you
silent
say.
treatment, di ba? Ano, passive-aggressive silent?
Yeah, and then boom. Then
Nagdadabog.
boom.
Anong,
Boom.
Anong ibig sabihin ng bong?
Anong ibig sabihin nun? Kung ikaw ay silent at passive, okay na yan. O aggressive ka naman. What are the signals? What is it you really want?
So, in a conflict, in a negotiation or whatever, it's important also to be transparent with your Don't make the
depends.
other person read you.
That depends.
Make the other
because
person read you pala.
If you are not transparent, make it deliberate.
Okay.
It's part of your strategy talaga.
It's an acting.
Yeah, tsaka part of your strategy. Alam mo nun,
May hack ka, may lalabas na hack dyan.
peace process. Yeah. So, sinahalandori, ganyan. So, my team was, I chair. So, first of all, they didn't know how to handle women. But our strategy was what? Our objective at that time was we wanted to change the agenda. We wanted to change the terms of engagement. So, what do? You rock the boat. So you have now, not all women, but we had 5-member team and only one was a man. The rest were women. And then I had someone, si Belle, but she has passed away. She was my negotiator. She went to University of Massachusetts to learn about We really were serious about negotiation. So she was going to be my custodian. And then we had someone, I won't mention her name, she'll kill me, but she was what we called our Rottweiler.
Is she she's playing a role.
Yeah. Anytime at a certain point. Kasi cycle naman na negotiation, hindi naman yan, ballet. Yan ay may rough spots yan. So when the threats are in, and they also play. So you shift strategies. You shift tactics. Actually, one strategy lang yan. So, Alandoni, the other side, had also a Rottweiler. The one who, 15 minutes in the game, and he utters to me, Chair, I know where you live. So I said, time out. And I went to the mediator and I said, if this is going to be allowed, we will refuse to engage. Meron ka ring ano. Meron niyang mga, that was a threat. Right? And I knew for a fact that they needed this discussion because they wanted something out of the negotiations. So they're not going to throw it.
But is it?
So later on, I'm not going back there, I said. Later on, but the mediator came in and says, they would like to come back. And the chair apologized.
But when you say threat, for example, when you negotiate, you're gonna say, I will not give you X. If you don't give me X, I won't give you Y. Isn't that a threat? But that happens.
The threat to me was very soft. It says, I know where you live.
Oh, okay.
And you don't take that.
Yes.
So you stop the discussion. But if you don't do this or do that,
That's part of it.
And it's called bargaining.
Okay. When you, for example, fall into conflict, right, and relationships are broken,
Okay.
how do you, and I don't just mean a formal negotiation, right? I mean, even with parents, for example, right?
Yeah.
Or, you know, the boss or the follower, the team member. How do you repair a relationship, the relationship?
With much difficulty.
Well, what do you mean by that?
With much difficulty. So before you destroy a relationship, think about what you're giving up. And that also goes into the issue of trust. Before you let go and do something, where you lose some of the trust, you better be deliberate and be willing to lose it. As soon as you see, trust is hard. Trust is easy to lose, but it's harder to regain.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, one of the things you will notice, I remember, I will not tell you names, but I was not in the Mindanao peace process, but our rooms were close to each other, and we would talk about our processes in the office of the peace advisor. And I remember they got into a real bad fix with the Supreme Court and the ganyan-ganyan. So I said, jokingly, I said, ay nako, Rod ba yun, his name? Sabi ko, alam mo, kung ako si Presidente, that was Arroyo Kung ako si Presidente, I'll change you. I'll change the panel. I need an excuse so I can redo the conversation. So negotiators, I'm sorry, even corporate salesmen make mistakes. Even if they didn't make a mistake, their bosses told them to do something. He needs to save the face. You need to redo the engagement because nagkamali kayo Alisin mo yung negosyador. So in 2 weeks' time, we changed negotiators. And it gives us the space to redo our engagement. So, yung sa mga negosyador, talagang ready to let go ka. Especially the terrible ones. And you will make mistakes. My God, not you, but maybe even your bosses made a mistake. So they need to, you need to save your president, ganyan. But that is part of what we do. And I think, you talk of conflict. You need to embrace it. But if there's a truck coming down the road, please do not embrace. Okay? Meaning what? You are not ready to take on the truck. What you need to do is to build, again, your infrastructure for engaging. So that is where avoiding is the best strategy. And
Lalo
the
na
best
pag alam mong
strategy.
mamamatay ka.
Oo, get out of
Okay.
the way.
Correct. And then, so it is okay to go
It's
into the balcony and, and pause. I mean, it doesn't make you appear weak.
Alam mo, sa negosasyon, yung mga appearing weak, dahan-dahan kayo. Kasi yung appearing weak of a century ago is different. There is strength. There is strength in a what? In a very clear button. Excuse me. Alam ko when to walk away. Hindi mo pa alam ka, tapos ka. Okay? And then the other one is knowing really the mission. And knowing that this is something that we need to work on. So hindi ka, yung signaling mo is not going to be mixed up. So that's why yung passive-aggressive example earlier, unless it's deliberate to mix up and to confuse, passive-aggressive sends different signals. And a negotiation discussion is already, a conflict issue is already so complex. It's difficult to mess it up. Really. Diba?
I look at you, Nieves. You're so confident and you have answers to a lot of questions. So my question is, since we're talking about emotions here, and in my book, I talk a lot about, strong emotions, but I also talk about emotions that probably can, the opposite of all of these strong emotions, right? So I wanted to ask you, Nieves, do you ever get scared?
All the time.
So when you negotiate, you're scared.
Yeah.
Are you scared? Have you ever been scared of your boss?
No, I've always loved my bosses.
Even
I'm sure they love me as well.
okay.
No, I think, there's something about, that's why I don't like negotiating on my own. I always negotiate as a team. Also because perspectives will have to be in full array all the time. And one of the things I'm saying is that I don't hold a monopoly of that perspective. My God, kasi shifting ang negosasyon. So I make sure that I have different people there. And then, what am I afraid of? I'm always afraid that we won't get to know what they want because I'm ready to give. So you work at it.
I have a question to ask you. Flor Contemplacion, for example, when you were Secretary of Secretary of Labor that time, right?
Yeah.
And that was a difficult. I remember, how that actually, we were in, what do you call that, in great conflict with Singapore, right? And I remember how much it became such a national pain.
This may be your the Flor Contemplacion case and what happened was never repeated. We were ready for it. But the Flor Contemplacion helped us, made us learn what it was. I remember, si Flor, nasa Supreme Court na yun eh. May was the election. That's why complex talaga ang mga kalokohan eh. May was the election.
What election? Presidential election?
No, senatorial pa lang.
Okay.
Hindi pa presidente. So the floor happened. The reason why you need to contextualize your conflict was that Senator Maceda already warned me, we're friends. Ororis kalokohan is really nice. He says, Nieves, sasagasaan ka dito. Ikaw ang Secretary of Labor. Meaning what? The opposition was going to use the issue. And the president at the time, and I remember in the cabinet, the internal negotiations were what? The discussion was, my God, she's really guilty. So I said, yeah. I mean, it was found out, but we had lawyers for her all the way. And at the time, Singapore was the year of the caning of the American boy. So they were also, in a sense, in a picture where they wanted to tell the world that they were on their own, they could decide. Okay, the ASEAN was intact. And I remembered in the major, we had so many discussions about it. And I do remember this. And this is something to do with, we were now negotiating in a sense with the country. And I remember one of the members of cabinet saying, but Nieves, I mean, how can you let your president ask the president of Singapore, the prime minister, to forgive and absolve this woman? And their Supreme Court has already said she is really guilty. Totoo naman. So empathy mo sa Singapore. On the other hand, I said, sir, this is not a story of whether that woman really did kill or not. This is a story of a country and a nation who is what? Who is now in anguish. It's about every father and every mother and every sister, getting angry because the notion was we let go and we did not protect their daughter, their sister. And it is a nation that you need to speak to. It is not, I said, the Supreme Court that we need to speak to. And that, in a sense, is your emotions in negotiations and in conflict. You need to handle the emotions very well. You need to transform that emotion. Except at that time, we were not ready because we didn't think it could happen. So, si President Ramos wanted to win the Senate because he had 2 or 3 laws that he wanted passed, which is great. So I said, sir, let me go. I mean, really, honestly. Sabi niya, and I remember him telling me, the choice of letting you go, Nieves, is not yours. It is mine. Galing, hawak na. Sabi niya, and I remember having been in a room with him, one telephone, kasi wala pa nung di ba? iPhone, telepono. He was the Prime Minister of Thailand was on that line. And then Suharto, or one of the Indonesian president was also on the other line. Why? Because the ASEAN was now, can you imagine? The ASEAN was now going to be what? Split up. There were very strong discussions, and Singapore didn't want to let go. Actually, at that time also, we were saying, had the old Singaporean ambassador who understood us, had he been there and not the new one, it might have helped. But he let go of the ambassador in Singapore, he let go of the ambassador here, then he let go of Secretary Romulo. Because the daily surveys showed that his ratings were going down, negative na siya. And so I said, and this is where I keep saying, when you're negotiating, make sure you know exactly what mission that you would like to reach. And we were already in the mission area, and in operations yan. Sabi nga niya, one of the saddest things a president has to do is to let go of his cabinet. I remember, talagang sama-sama ng Sabi ko, sir, these are unique times. This is not your regular times. So you will need to let go. So, the notion of emotions, my God, he lost 2 members of cabinet, foreign affairs and labor at that, and 2 ambassadors. Really good ambassadors, sina Benedicto at saka yung isa na magaling na babae. But, sabi niya, but the objective is different. it wasn't trying to win. It was trying to what? Future na ang kanyang pinipitik. So very strategic. Diba? So it's like changing your negotiators in the middle because you needed space to redo the conversation. It's the same thing with us. And I remember one day, his aide calls me and says, "Ma'am, President wants to talk to you na." Sure. In the music room pa. And then he said, and he was such a caring president. Talagang, ano na yan, Nieves? And then he showed me the results of the survey, etc. I said, "Sir, I want to go. I really want to go because my kids are already in the States. There are threats to my family." And then he said, "Okay." But he didn't let go until he was sure where I was going to be. I was going to be fine, and where the department was going to be intact, because we had to be intact. I mean, we had to work. And I went to the States after. Then I came back. And then he says, "Okay." Then he said, I just said the notice. "You want to sit on the board?" I said, "Sure." And then he said, "You want to be ambassador for me?" "Yeah." But it was really work. I thought, but it was something like, ang conflict kasi different layers na yan. He was doing national, global, and then personal as well. But I remember that he said, the worst thing that can happen to this president is to let go of his cabinet. Sabi ko, "Oo naman, sir." Pero this was something that we didn't plan for. And it was a major debate that we had to make sure the Supreme Court. Sabi ko, "Ay naku, wala ako dyan." And this is where you're going to talk about emotions. The emotions in a negotiation, people miss it. But now no more, because floor will never happen again. Is we're fit for it. So there we go. So
I guess at that point, the present was very messy, the present. But then, looking at the future, how that particular situation taught us a lesson, right?
Right.
I mean, there were losses, right? I mean, people losing their job, for example, or...
there was something more important at stake.
Exactly.
That's why corporates don't haggle on the 1% discount. The corporates today haggle because of a future they would want to have.
That's right.
And that's why it is important that that future is a little clear. But there's more than one future. There are different futures.
Correct. And I guess it is up to us to create these possibilities, right?
Yes.
With that imagination, no, and with that, strength in the power of the future, I wanted to hold on to that to say thank you to you. But before that, I want to ask you. I want to go do fast talk and ask you just one answer. What is Nieves afraid of?
A lot.
Like
A
what?
lot. The future.
The future.
Yeah.
What are you ashamed of?
What am I ashamed of? Actually, I prefer what am I afraid of. The ashamed of, can I reframe it?
Okay.
One of the things I needed to work on when you want to do conflict, and one of the things you have to change your mind about is, kasi pagpasok natin, especially the more we feel that we are the less of the parties, is taasan yung ating kapain ka. Motion natin, pull, ganyan. And we talk, sometimes people, you could see that because they use contempt. And said, di naman siya marunong tanong ng tanong. Today we talk about another notion, and you turn that around and you transform that to what? A statement of vulnerability. That's why you asked me, What are you ashamed of? Parang, I've worked on nothing will shame me at this point. Oh, kaya mo yan? And I guess I can be quite intimidating is because shame is not on my lap. It is called vulnerability.
Yes.
And that's what we need to work on. And you use vulnerability also in a negotiation.
Correct.
Like hell.
To surrender that level of control and be vulnerable. So that is,
Because
there's no
in
shame
the
in that,
hope
right?
that- yeah, in the hope that the other will yield.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
That's why the signaling is important then. Well, yeah, that's why I said shame. What am I ashamed of? I know I'm afraid of many things. But I'm ashamed. I'm not even ashamed of being wrong. Because I will ask for forgiveness.
Wow, that coming from the Secretary of Labor to ask for forgiveness is such a big thing. I will hold on to that confidence and say thank you to you for inspiring us today, Nieves. I am so thankful for this chance to actually learn more about you. I learned many things today. Number one, wag tayong arrogante. Correct? Number two, dapat makulit tayo. Tanong lang tayo na to ng question, right? I mean, there is no shame. I guess it's not ignorance, but it's really just wanting to learn more, right? And
Sincere.
engage. Fight in the arena, but if it makes more sense and it's more strategic to disengage, it must be, it is because it's a plan. No, hindi siya passive aggressive. Disengage. Don't be afraid to go to the balcony and think about it.
Always.
There is nothing to be ashamed of.
Oh, many things we will need to be ashamed of. Many. But do you shame? Are we ashamed? Are we even ashamed of making a mistake? Diba? Pero bang, I can't even shame anyone. Now you can't. Because everybody has a claim to the wisdom. So even your CEOs, the best of them, only holds part of the wisdom. Sorry. But that lowly salesman actually knows more of the market at that
Exactly.
time than his CEO. Diba? So talagang mindsets mo are going to have to change. Yun.
I guess we want to end this understanding more that no one is as smart as all of us. The room is the smartest. Even if, people in the opposite side of the negotiation table, they know a lot. And, knowing what they know makes the space even bigger.
I'll have one line. I think we all must remember, that the other guy, the one in front of us, holds what we want. And that makes me behave like hell. Even though I do not agree. Remember, the other guy holds what we want.
So it's important for the hands to open so that they could let go. With that, thank you so much, Nieves. There is very little time, but I know there's many, many more we wanted to extract from your wise brain and your experience. And thank you so much for being very generous to actually, add more our wisdom. This is Cherry Africa, and this is our podcast, Empath to Success. And I'd like everyone to remember, if the only thing we're doing is thinking and not feeling, then there is actually no chance to learn empathy. So allow us all to grant every leader, every parent, every future leader, every teacher the chance to get scared, to be hurt, so that in that pause, in that hesitation, we become more human and more real, to allow us to fall short, to ask for forgiveness, to bounce back up, to learn resilience, and to also recognize the windfall of epic proportions so that we could all learn empathy, and for every one of us to carry on and lead from our heart. Thank you so much, Nieves. It's been
very
such a
much
great
as well.
conversation.
Right. Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.